Hi, I'm Paul Antonio, and in this video I am going to try to do a quick run through and introduction to the PAScribe Lining Template. This is the second iteration of the template, whereas the previous iteration has UK on it, this iteration has EU on it. You cannot get the UK template anymore. This is an upgrade on the UK template, and you will see exactly why. So let's let me try and do this in less than 10 minutes. I tried this already and ended up making 7 20-minute videos. So this is the box the template comes in. So as you can see, it has on this side it says PAScribe Lining Template, and it has the PAScribe logo. So I did this so that it looks like, you know, a book. You can actually place it on a shelf, and the box is really sturdy, so it helps to protect the template. When we open the box, this is what we see. So I press and open. There's a little flap that holds the template in place, and on the bottom side of the box, there are two flaps that hold it in place in there as well. And there's a little box, and in that little box has some different kinds of pins. So we have these pins, of which there are two types. So we have a thicker pin, which I call the tram pins, and these are 1 millimeter in diameter, the metal spike. And then we have the thinner pins, which I call the anchoring pins, and these are 0.7 of a millimeter in diameter. So just be careful when you're putting them back into the box. They're very sharp. You can get pricked very badly. So I just leave that in there. So how I close the box is I lift and I slide my finger along it. Just be careful because it is cardboard. If you slide it too quickly, you might get a paper cut. So inside of the box, the template lives in there. This is what it looks like. And it comes in a sleeve. I generally cut here and keep it in the sleeve rather than taking the tape off, because it can damage the sleeve. And I put it back into the box upside down, so the thickest part of the overlap slots back in to the two bits. I then lift that up and put this back in like so, to keep the template nice and sturdy and stable. Now, what is the fuss about this template? This is the largest kind of template on the market. It is 210 by 280 millimeters, which is 8¼ by 11 inches. It's 3 millimeters thick. It is also the thickest kind of template of its kind on the market, and I did this for the main reason that when you are pressing against the inside of the cuts, the perspex is so thick there's no deformation. It doesn't bend, it doesn't warp. Obviously, if you're pushing really, really hard, anything will warp. So this has maximum coverage on a page. It is basically A4 narrow and US letter size high. So it's a really interesting size. And the reason I did that was for those who want to carry the template around, you could actually, if you have one of the PAScribe Rhodia pads that you've used some of, you can actually sit the template inside of the block like so, and it's right in there. I generally put some tape here, rubber bands here, and there, and then it just holds it in place, and I get to carry the pad as well as the template in quite a secure setting. Now, what was the template made for? So when I worked with Rhodia and I came up with these pads, you can see the lines are 6 millimeters in height. I wanted the pads to be used for both calligraphic practice as well as correspondence. Now, I did some market research and I asked all my followers, and they all got back to me and said 6 mil roughly. Most people said 6 mil is the size they tend to work at. So the lines are at 6 mil. And I also wanted to be able to halve those lines. Of course, you can use other tools like, plastic T-squares and that kind of thing, but they are not that accurate. So with the template, what you do is you place the template on the bottom cut on one of the lines. And of course, the problem is I have all this light here, and really you only need one light source because it really helps you to see both the lines and the template. So I just need to stand up for this. So I placed it on that bottom line, and what I'm going to do is I am going to anchor the template in place. So you can see that it's sitting, the bottom of the cut is sitting on the bottom of one of those lines, and I'm going to use the thinner anchoring pins. So there are 5 holes at the top, 5 in the middle, and 5 at the base. Once I've put those anchoring pins in, the template does not move. Now, I know for me, if I'm doing this quickly, I'm very careful. I will put my fingers here. So I've made this. If you have small hands, you can put your fingers here. If you have larger hands like me, you can do sort of a bigger stretch. These little white areas have they're braided underneath, so they stop it from shifting. But if you are clumsy and you always mess up your ruling lines, use the anchoring pins. They're quite small, so they leave really small holes. Don't use the tram pins, because the tram pins will not fit in these holes and they will crack the template. So once you've put this on, you then rule like so, and this halves the line height. Now once you've halved the line height, you have a 3mm height. The template will also allow you to rule up 1mm, 2mm, 4, 5, then 7, 8, 9, and 10mm lines. So it also works, doesn't just work on the PAScribe Rhodia pads, it also works on blank pads. And I'll show you a quick demo on that in a bit. Now, this is the simplest use of the template to create lines at 3mm. And the other next simple use is to put your axial lines for the script. So if we're going to write Copperplate script, there's a 55 here. This says that it's at the top. There's a 55 here, there is a 55 here, and there's a 55B, which says it's at the base. So if we put those 55s there, and we use the tram pins, so if we line up those straight lines and place them so they're vertical, so not this way because they're not vertical this way, they're vertical this way, so they sort of lock in place and they can slide up and down the pad. Once they're in position, you can, so I've also marked these off. So there's a little line here, little line here, little line here. So I tend to skip if you decide, so there we have the 55 lined up. If you decide that you need closer lines, you can do every other line. So I'm going to work a little further down so you can see the addition of the additional lines. Now, of course, there are lots of lines on here, and the template can help you rule up angles of 90 degrees. Obviously, this is that, 0 degrees, which is that, and then 85, 80, 75, 70, 60, 55, 52, 45, 30, 10 and 5 degrees. So if you're doing, if you're writing textualis quadrata or fraktur, you would rule sum at 45. If you're doing italic at 5 or 10 degrees off the vertical, you would do it at 85 or 80. If you're going to write something like uncials, you might find that you will need some 5-degree angles or possibly 10-degree angles, depending on the type of uncials you're doing, so you keep the nib nice and flat. So the template can help you, can rule up lines, very even, consistent lines. And lots of people who purchased the first iteration of the template, you'll see that this is EU here. There's a UK in the original one. Said something that I hadn't anticipated. Everyone who got it said that they've stopped using rulers because the template's so accurate, and that they've never ruled such accurate lines before. So that's obviously really helped them in their calligraphy, in their more accurate calligraphic practice. The side here is graded for metric, and on this side it's graded for imperial, so it's in inches. There are no markings because, of course, there were already too many markings here to try and fit additional numbers in here. Now, the template was originally designed for working on an A4 pad, but it works equally well on, I just had a sheet out and it's disappeared. Magic. It works equally well on a US letter size. So that's a US letter size sheet, and you can see it is shorter and squatter than the A4 sheet. So in this situation, because the distance from here to here is A4, this is where the base angle comes in. So I'm going to put that on there. So imagine you're working on a US letter size pad. You would lock the template in place by, let's say we're going to do some Spencerian script. There's a 52 angle there, and there's a 52B here. So notice I twist the pins to get them in. And I'm looking to get that line horizontal and that line vertical, and that rules up my 52. I'll do every one of them. My 52-degree line, like so. So as long as the sheet has a right angle, the template, and it's on a block that's high enough. So sometimes what I do, if I'm working on a blank sheet of paper, I will take an unused pad and I will set it on the pad. Now, you can even pin this in place. So if you pin it in place, you can rule this sheet up without it moving, and then hold it down and put the corresponding angles that you're looking for so that you have it that way. If you're using an A4 pad and an A4 sheet, obviously it works in the same way, but the tram pins can move up and down, causing it to slide. So those are the main features of the template. Now, there are other features of the new version which do not exist in the old version, and that's things like finding center lines. So there are little markers on here. This one says MIA, which is metric, imperial, and architectural. And if we put those next to each other, you'll see there's an I here which lines up with the imperial, and there's an I here which lines up with the imperial as well. So also you can only really use 3mm 0.3 millimeter leads for this rather than 5. So that immediately gives us our center line. And once you have your center line, you can even line the center line up with the holes. And by doing so, you can quite easily find some crosshairs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the other template didn't have, which is allowing you to take those crosshairs and to produce some concentric circles. Now, I was asked by some of the people who purchased the previous template if there'd be a way for me to add something to help them make circles. And I said, well, why don't you just use a compass? And they said, the compass leaves a big hole in the paper, but more than that, it also, when it slips, it causes quite a lot of problems. Now, just remember, this is only an introductory video for you to get a sense of what the template can do. There are very, very detailed videos in the PAScribe products link for the lining template, where I go through every single aspect, basically walking you through each stage of the template and its usage. Now, that's pinned in place. So what you're going to do is you're going to move the template, not the pencil. So I'm going to put the pencil down, and I'm going to move the template. And so these holes are new holes as opposed to the old template. I didn't have this as part of it. And so they can help you create concentric circles like so. And the great thing about the rigidity of the template is you don't miss where you're overlapping. So I had hoped it would work really well. I didn't anticipate it working this well. Now, similarly, if you have to do reverse work, so this was at 52, take a note of where that 52 is, here, and I'm going to put that 52 here, and I'm going to arbitrarily line it up, because I could use the pins and hold it in place, but for the purposes of this demonstration, oh, it's the 52 on the other side, so it needs to be here. I'm sort of doing my head in here. Here we go. Where is it? That's 52 there, so that needs to be this way. So I'm putting the 52 at the top, and I'm putting the other 52 on the side. And so if you need to rule up a set of angles in the opposite, you can do that quite easily. Like so. So you can build grids, not just of, I mean, generally when we build a grid, it's usually a 45. You can build grids using angles that you require for other things. So with 52, you would build this for something like a reverse Spencerian. So if you had to come from the other side, the angle is already there. Now, why would you do this? You would do this to help you when you're doing some basic flourishing. So of course I would generally use a slightly flatter angle. So if I was using these angles, you could then build the grid much more easily. Now, apart from using the angles that are here, you can actually rule up your own angles. So let's just flip this over. I'm just going to arbitrarily drop these 3mm lines on here. Now, the template, I designed the template to work with the pads, but the structure and design of the template came from, 25 years of addressing envelopes and dealing with madness of having to do things and not knowing how to do them, not having a tool to do them. Sometimes when you're writing on an envelope, you want to write uphill, but that angle is a slightly arbitrary angle. So if that's the angle that you want to write at, then you don't even need to measure it. All you do is do one rough, figure out where the line is, and you can use the template to rule that up. And if you know that you're doing a script, obviously a script at this angle will not be 55 degrees on this angle. So if we're writing at that angle, once you work that out, you don't even need to use the angles that are on the template. You just need to use the rigidity of the template to rule up your lines. So there are lots of ways to use the template. As I said, this is just a brief introduction. There are videos on every aspect of the template. So I start with the 55 degree. Obviously, I start with unboxing and how to put it back in and all of that madness. And then I look at how to use the template at its simplest, which is to halve a 6mm line, but also to add an angle like 55 or 52 or 85 if you're writing italic, Copperplate, or Spencerian. Then I go into more detail about the other angles. Each video is its own set of angles. And then I go through how to rule up individual lines at 1mm, 2mm, 3mm. Obviously it's the same, you just drop the template on it. 5mm, 4mm, 5mm, 6mm, you double the 3. And then 7, 8, 9, and 10mm. Of course with the 9 you just triple the 3. But there are other things that the template can do. So for instance, when you look at the template carefully, you'll see that there are some lines here. That's A5, A5, A6, A6. You can put an A5 card portrait. And once you put that card portrait, these center lines will naturally show you where the center of that A5 card or A6 card or 8x6 or 5x7 card. And of course there's a top bit. You see there's an A5 here, and there's one down here. So it helps you to align the card without actually having to stick things down. So I go through all of this and explain how the template works in considerable detail. All right, so I need to shut up because there's so much about it that I could go into. And as I said before, I tried to do this introductory video and ended up with 7-10-minute videos. Some of them are actually 20 minutes. Okay, so if you have any questions, by all means, don't hesitate to email me at classes@pascribe.com. There is also a dedicated space in the PAScribe community on Circle where the links will live for the videos. So you can always go back and watch them. And in that space, you can also interact with PAScribe community members who have the template and are working through their way with it. And of course, as what happened with the previous template, I will probably find that people are starting to use it in ways that I didn't really intend, and that will then add to its usability. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to hearing of your enjoyment of the use of this PAScribe Lining Template. Thank you very much.